I'm looking forward to the next lecture. Arthur Bouz from our partner Triscon speaks for the Vienna Insurance Group, VHG. To be precise, for Twinformatics, which is the IT organization of the VHG. About 2 years ago, VHG was still working with JMeter. The demands on the JMeter were so high that VHG could hardly cover them with its own employees and had to purchase expensive testing services from an external partner. Nevertheless, VHG could hardly understood that commercial tools could be used more economically than open source tools. An evaluation of NeoLoad then proved the opposite. Today, VHG is much further ahead with the new partner Triscon than 2 years ago. Not only rudimentary performance tests are made, but systematic and automatic testing is carried out. Arthur Bouz shows us how the integration of functional testing with Tosca and performance tests with NeoLoad is working together and what advantages are associated with it. Even so Arthur looks very young. He's one of the leading performance engineers in Austria. He knows what he's talking about. I'm very happy that we could win such a competent speaker. Look forward to the presentation of Arthur.
Well, then I'll go on. My name is Arthur Bouz, and today I'm going to show you test design automation with the new NeoLoad Tosca integration. I'll speak for both companies, Twinformatics and Triscon, as we have been cooperating in load testing for almost 2 years now. But first, let's go over the table of contents. I'm going to introduce myself and both companies, of course, and then I'll jump right to our current test setup at Twinformatics and how we want to improve on that to our new test design approach. Then I'll go into the technical details of the NeoLoad Tosca integration, where I'll talk about all theoretical stuff, and then it's demo time, where I'll go into the practical details and show you how it's done. Last, but certainly not least, I'll summarize the key advantages of the Tosca NeoLoad integration. Welcome to Twinformatics. Twinformatics is the IT service provider of 2 major insurance companies, the Wiener Städtische Versicherung and the Donauversicherung, and they have over 400 employees who develop and extend over 700 different applications. So the maintenance and software quality assurance is of high importance to us. That's where the test management department comes into play. The test management department accompanies projects right from the beginning up until the end, and it's assisting the whole team with status reports or problem analysis via Zipkin traces, Prometheus metrics, but we also test very regularly by using first and foremost Tosca and NeoLoad. I'm from Triscon. We are a company based in Vienna in the Millennium Tower, and we are partners of NeoLoad and Dynatrace. And usually we use load tests to find performance issues, and then use APM tools, for example, Dynatrace, to find the root cause of the problem and drastically increase the performance of the product for our customers. Yeah, we are easy to find in our office, and yeah, we welcome your visit. Well, let's jump to our current test setup at Twinformatics. Our current testing environment is split into 2 major aspects. We have the functional tests with Tosca, and we have the performance tests with NeoLoad. Most team members are more proficient with one tool than the other. And also the test data varies between the tools. So we use different login credentials. For example, we use different login credentials for Tosca, for example, than for the NeoLoad scripts. And we also work out our test cases separately. So for both tools, we work out separate test cases and create scripts from that. In Tosca, we use templates, of course, and in NeoLoad, we record manually the whole test case. Sometimes we can use test cases from Tosca directly and use them as a setup for our performance test scripts, but we cannot use the automated test scripts in Tosca yet. But this changes with our new test design approach with the help of the new NeoLoad Tosca integration. The idea is to use the very same test case and use the automated test script in Tosca, which acts on the GUI on the browser, to use this test script to automatically record it in NeoLoad for the user path. This saves a lot of time because the automation is so much faster than doing all manually, and it's much less error prone, of course, much less error prone as well, of course. And yeah, it's that's the approach, what we want to do, but let's jump in how we do it. The NeoLoad Tosca integration uses a specific NeoLoad Tosca add-on where Tosca Tosca uses the add-on to be able to call the NeoLoad API. So it uses the API to start and stop the recording by starting and stopping the NeoLoad proxy. And also it uses the API to create a user path or the transaction names. So if we have Tosca, NeoLoad, and our test system all up and running, what happens when I start the integration? Tosca first launches the NeoLoad proxy via the NeoLoad API. So, and when the NeoLoad proxy starts and is recording, the automated test scripts usually starts the browser, and the browser is configured to automatically detect the proxy and run the test through it. So we see that for Tosca, nothing changes. It can still access the system on the test, but every HTTP request and response are passed through the NeoLoad proxy, and so the test case can be integrated. After the installation, you can configure this add-on though. So let's jump into that. In the options in Tosca, you find a new menu item called NeoLoad add-on. And there you can specify your port number or your host name for your specific NeoLoad setup. Usually in our case at Twinformatics, if you have NeoLoad and Tosca installed on this very same machine, it works perfectly fine with the default values. Then how do you start the integration? That's in the execution list down at the test case level. If you right click on it, you find the NeoLoad add-on where you can transfer your SAP test cases or your web test cases to NeoLoad. Well, then that's everything there is to the installation. Then it's time for the demo. I will show you how we get from an automated Tosca test case to a NeoLoad performance test report in under 15 minutes. So we start right away with the integration. The video is sped up for the Tosca test case because of the wait times. It takes about 5 minutes, and I wanted to shorten it for this presentation, so everything fits fine. Yeah, we already saw the login, and we are in the product selection. The test case covers the whole application process for an household insurance. So we we have to fill out forms for how many square meters we have, whether there's a basement. We take mostly the recommended values, but we change them up as well a little bit. And now we're downloading the cost overview. Yeah, there's a lot of other stuff which happens in this test case, but I wanted to show you this video, this recording, because this test case is a long test case. It has loads of test steps, and it's quite difficult to do this manually without doing any errors in NeoLoad. I did this a few times, and it's very time consuming. It's very error prone, and it's not that fun to do at all. And with this NeoLoad Tosca integration, it works within minutes, which yeah, I'm still excited about it. We see the test case is already at the application, so we are rather quite at the end. We have to sign it and then send it for, yeah, almost finished. So that was the sped up part, so double time. But now let's do everything in real time. Wait, sorry. I just restarted the video. Excuse me. Sorry. So now we're at the proper scene. So we just integrated the test case. That's the NeoLoad icon is blinking at the bottom of the screen. And let's jump into NeoLoad. What happened here? So we find a new user path in our project, and the user path name took its name from the Tosca test case. And the test steps are, as the transactions are named right after the test steps of the Tosca test case. So everything is named properly, and now we use our framework. We prepared a specific framework for this test case, and we replaced the most, the essential variables and parameterize our test case. And yeah, we changed the think time from 5 seconds to half a second because it should run a little faster. And now do a check user path. So we just integrated the Tosca test case. We prepared and replaced the framework parameters, and now it already runs through. So there's a few pauses because it downloads documents, but in mere minutes, we already have a running user path. And yeah, when the user path runs, we can actually do a load test right now. So let's wait for it to pass through. Yeah, it's valid. So then let's close that window and go to the populations. Yeah, we take the recorded values. These should work perfectly fine. And for our test case, for load test scenario, we took 10 users, one iteration. It's not the largest load test, but it should work. It suffices for this demonstration. Yeah. And let's start the load test. Perfect. So yeah, the users do not all start simultaneously because we use the same login credentials, and sometimes, very rarely, there happens an error if 2 users use the exact same credentials. But so we used a small step load for that. And yeah, now the load test is running. So imagine what we just did. We were at the Tosca test case mere minutes ago, and I put in here a little jump to not waste your time by watching the load test. But instead, we're running a load test, and it's already ending. So the users finish their iterations, and yeah, it's I think I'm still astonished by the fact that it's happens so fast, because usually I have to record the whole test case first in the browser. I have to use the frameworks, of course. I'll try to check to run the user paths, and here we're already finished. We see all the non-functional properties of our previous Tosca test case. We have all the response times, the error rates, and of course we could have run a larger load test scenario, but yeah, for demo purposes, a small one suffices. It's, yeah, please let it sink in. In 15 minutes, we converted an automated Tosca test case to NeoLoad. We used a prepared NeoLoad framework to parameterize it, recreated a population, and ran immediately a load test. Imagine doing that with all of your Tosca test cases, at least with the automated ones, of course. I mean, in my opinion, it's awesome. And let's summarize. Let's get to the end. Let's summarize what are the key advantages of the NeoLoad Tosca integrations. I already told you about the fast conversion within minutes. It just takes as long as the automated Tosca test case would take, so usually less than 10 minutes. And it's an automated approach. So you cannot make any errors and are so much faster by doing the recording, at least this way. And you can do the recording even without having a prepared framework. So you can use the NeoLoad Tosca integration in all cases, at least for the recording. But there's another advantage. By using Tosca, Tosca has a mode where it automatically generates your test case documentation by screenshotting your inputs and all your steps which you took while doing the test case. So you can use this very same auto-generated test case documentation for the NeoLoad test cases as well. So you have one test case documentation which you can use for Tosca and for NeoLoad, which helps a lot. And easier maintenance. During product development, when a new version is published, then usually some HTTP requests in the background change, but the user interface doesn't change that often. So you can use the very same Tosca test case to re-record and update your user path in NeoLoad as well. So the maintenance aspect is also huge on this one. Usually I treated NeoLoad user paths when I recorded them manually. I treat them like holy artifacts because it took so long to prepare them and to get them running, and that everything worked perfectly fine, and to do that there wasn't any errors. And now for this presentation, I tried the integration out several times. So I was so accustomed to treating the user paths as more or less holy artifacts, as several hours of work which you shouldn't delete just by an easy click. And for this integration, I had this option. I just deleted the user path because I knew within 5 minutes I have the same user path up and running again in NeoLoad. So the easier maintenance is also a really big deal for me here. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and you can use the NeoLoad Tosca integration to reuse your automated functional test cases for performance testing. Thank you. And now we jump to the Q&A.
Thank you, Arthur, for that great presentation and for the great demo as well. So it's really, really impressive, even for me, as I know Tosca and NeoLoad as well. I know that you were one of the first users of the new integration with NeoLoad and Tosca, and you already started with the beta phase. Would be nice to get some information how it was as a cooperation with NeoTools on this. As I remember, there were some technical issues to solve. Maybe you can give us a short information about that.
Yeah. We tried out the prototype at first, where the transaction naming and so on didn't work as perfectly as they did now. But our NeoLoad is our partner, and the communication was we could just ask for any question, and we got really fast and good support by that. And we could also, our feedback was hugely, what's it called? it was well received.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Sorry.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was also. I think it took 2 weeks or something to really expand the prototype version to address our problems, our specific needs. So we got really good partner support from NeoTest. So we appreciate that. Yeah, it was a good experience.
Thank you very much. There were some questions from the audience. They are more or less about the complexity of this Tosca scripts, and I think that's a really important point. I want to summarize some of these questions, and it looks like that is a standard Tosca test for a complex scenario. Is there anything you have to adopt into Tosca that you are able to reuse it later on in NeoLoad, or is it just a Tosca script even with a complex scenario which can be reused for NeoLoad?
You don't have to change the Tosca test cases itself. Though you have to keep in mind as the Tosca test names. Tosca uses templates, and templates are quite often reused several times in the same test case. And the templates of Tosca include test steps usually, and the test steps name your transactions. So sometimes you have the template several times, so the test steps are there several times, and so the transactions are also created several times in NeoLoad, so they are numbered, but you still know where you are in your test case. And I think it's a little adaptation that you rename a few of your templates, or that you make sure you know where you are from your test step name, but it works already really well. So we didn't do any major adaptation for this integration. I think we only added, we changed, I think 5 test step names or something. So not too big of a deal.
Yeah, I think that's also a topic you have to address in your organization, between the test automation team and the performance testing team. So yeah, to sync and to have common understanding of how to name your test actions in Tosca, so you get speaking NeoLoad transaction then after recording it.
Thank you, Fabian, and welcome to this discussion. I know you are also team member of the Twinformatics team for the test automation and the performance testing. So there's also a point where we can take up some questions from the audience regarding the users. Probably it's not the same user who's using Tosca and who's using NeoLoad. How is Twinformatics organized in this case? And another question in this context is, how is the software development integrated in this whole process?
Twinformatics started using NeoLoad, as I said, almost 2 years ago. And there it was a new product, and the performance testing wasn't as I would say it wasn't as advanced as it is now. Through our cooperation, it really flourished, and now the team members really exchange each other about performance tests. When we run a load test in NeoLoad, we have more than 10 team members that are right there watching all the metrics and delivering live feedback. Checking Zipkin traces, and it's much better integrated than it was 2 years ago, and the NeoLoad Tosca integration, the possibility of that alone offers so many possibilities now, because they usually had all the functional tests automated in Tosca and they worked perfectly fine, but at a certain load, problems occurred, and we identified these problems, and the advantage of performance testing is now apparent to every team member, at least at the test management department. But we spread the good news, actually. So we were at architecture boards, for example, as well. So the importance of load testing becomes more and more apparent to everyone in the company.
Oh, that's great. I know one of my colleagues is always telling performance testing is a kind of team sports. And I think it's not only performance testing, it's performance engineering in the way as you are doing it right now. So that's absolutely fine for me to hear that it's not only an idea of NeoTwist that we have to use a team sport approach, but that's really daily practice, at least as we an insurance group.
Yeah, I mean, it took some time, but over the years, the whole performance testing, the test case documentation, it became more and more refined, more and more professional, and yeah, we are moving now to SLAs as well. So the performance tests really try to we try to ensure what's called the non-functional properties of our test cases. So we get more and more acknowledgement for our progress we achieved.
Yeah, there's also something which was come up over the chats, the questions about the skill sets. Do you think that in quotation mark a standard tester is able to handle this, or what skill sets do a tester have to learn that he is able to do such an advanced performance testing or performance engineering approach?
That's a good question, actually. I think to integrate a test case from an automated Tosca test case, any Tosca, anyone who is already familiar with Tosca can use the integration. It's really simple to use. And you also immediately notice, okay, there's a test step named rather obscure. I'll change it so the transaction is apparent in NeoLoad as well. For NeoLoad to make a test case runnable there, of course, you need it's mostly experience. You need some workshop, you need a tutorial, of course. You need to get familiar with the product, but it's not rocket science. But the more complex part about it is in my opinion, to evaluate the load test itself, because the problem analysis is in my opinion the most crucial part of our work. I mean, to notice that you have a problem is one thing, but to specify where it is and how to resolve it is a completely different. And that's in my opinion where you need also to have a developer background, because to know how a network works, how a web server works, and all that. So if we want to differentiate between a normal tester and the developer, I think the problem analysis is where the difference is the largest. But that's also the reason why we at Twinformatics have usually 10 team members at the performance test, because there's the database expert there. There's someone who's responsible for one specific service, which usually gets problematic in the load test. And they have their own expertise, of course. And so with the team effort, we can resolve the problems and analyze the load tests.
Okay, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to get that great background information, that deep dive into NeoLoad and Tosca integration. That's absolutely fantastic. And thank you very much again.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us. Yeah.